So welcome everyone to the weekly Pepperi training session. I've started the recording, which you'll all get after the session. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back and forth. You see here my iPad screen, and over here you see the Pepperi Studio. On my browser, you see the back office where I'm logged in as an admin user. And the main area you'll be using here is the settings. So if you go to the settings gear, when you log in here to the back office, you'll see the settings for all of the Pepperi objects. There's a very big depth of configuration in each one of these objects. There's no way we can cover it all, and there's lots you can do. Really depends on what you need. It's very flexible and configurable. What I'm going to do is go over the things that you have to know, the main functionality and the main configuration that's most important to get started with. And then you can take it from there. You can go on your own. Then you have support, access to opening support tickets, and you can come to these webinars. They take place once a week. Okay, so let's get started. Here I am on my iPad using the Pepperi app. Right now, the type of user that I'm signed in as is a sales rep user, which is a user that has access to a whole bunch of customers that's going to place orders and do activities for those customers. Is there anyone here who is using the Pepperi storefront where they have their customers logging in as buyers, as doing self-service ordering, B2B self-service ordering on the browser, or they're actually downloading the Pepperi app and doing it from their mobile devices? I'd be very interested to know if there's anyone here using the storefront. Okay, so let me know as we go along here. So far, I don't see anyone. Okay, just so you're aware, you can have multiple profiles of users in Pepperi. So if you are using the storefront, there is the buyer profile versus the rep or the merchandiser or the mobile user who is visiting multiple accounts. There is the self-service ordering. So the buyer, when they log in either to the app or to the web app on a browser, they're placing an order, they have access only to their catalog, and they can submit orders independently 24/7. So that's another kind of parallel complementary products we have to the Pepperi mobile app for Salesforce automation. Okay, so let's start here. I am on the home screen. You can, of course, configure the branding to show your own background image. It's very simple to do. I don't want to spend too much time on it. The buttons here that you access the different activities and forms you have set up in the app, you can add the access to them straight as shortcuts straight from the home screen here. You have, of course, the access to My Accounts, which is the list of customers that this user has been assigned to. So once you load all of your account data to Pepperi, your customers, whether you're doing it through CSV files or you have an automated integration from your ERP, such as SAP, NetSuite, MYOB, QuickBooks, any ERP system you're using, loading your data to Pepperi. So all the customer information, once it's loaded, customers will be assigned to specific users. And when they open up the My Accounts button, they have access to the customers that they have been assigned to. Then they can go into each one of those customers and start carrying out, executing the activities, the orders, and filling out forms, whatever you have set up for them to do. You have a shortcut button here on the home screen, which will always be orange, and it will always be located here. So you can just have a quick access to, say, an order or to a form, anything that you define there for that shortcut, and then you don't have to go through the account list and the account dashboard. You just select the customer and boom, you're in the catalog and starting the order. So that's the difference with the shortcut button. So just to give you a general overview of the configuration, how do I build this home screen? Okay, because it's a simple way to, it's a simple screen to configure, but I can show you how the Pepperi configuration works on a simple example, and then it's basically the same for all of the other forms and views. Okay, so back here on my browser, I've logged in as an admin user to the Pepperi Studio. That's the back office. Like I said, when you go to the settings, you do all the configuration here, and then the mobile devices synchronize and they get all of those settings and all of those updates. Under the company profile section, you have a branding area. This is where you load the background screen. So the portrait version and the landscape version, you can upload them in the different dimensions so they look good when the device is turned around. And that's basically it for the mobile device branding. If you are using the storefront, so you have the buyer's home screen down below here. So this is what the buyers will see when they log into the mobile storefront, sorry, to the web storefront. And then the colors are also more relevant for on the browser for the buyer, because these colors, as you can see, they control the top bar colors here, but these are not, you don't really care about this. This is your back office. When your buyer logs in on a browser, they will also be using these colors. So you can set these colors to your brand colors with the RGB or select a color. Okay, so that's the branding configuration. And you can also load, of course, your logo. Your logo will appear at the top of the copies of the orders that are emailed. So when you have a PDF copy of the order, once the order is submitted, you can automatically have it emailed to any recipient that you indicate. And on the top of that PDF will be this company logo. So that's where you want to, that's where you need to load the logo, and just follow the instructions with the dimensions that are listed here for these various background images and logos. Next is the actual app home screen settings over here. And this is where we get into the configuration that I told you. Once you see it on this form, all the other forms and views will look very familiar to you, and the way to do it is very similar to this app home screen. So on the app home screen right now, I told you I was logged in as a sales rep user. So the profile I'm configuring is for a rep. I can configure different buttons, different access to the different components of the app by profile. Obviously, the admin, or if I have another profile called telesales that's logging in, all they need to see is reports and customers. A buyer, of course, will have their own home screen. They don't get to see all kinds of other dashboards that the rep can see. I have a merchandiser who doesn't place orders, but just fills in all kinds of audit reports and fills in forms at the customer. So I want to give access and shortcuts based on the profile. So once I configure the layout of my rep is the default profile. Now, you need to create as many profiles as you want to use, as many as you need. You may have different kinds of reps also. You can have regular sales rep, you can have senior reps, you can have lower level reps that you want to give different permissions to, different configuration to. So creating profiles in Pepperi simply allows you to control who sees what and who can do what kind of permissions, what kind of workflows will be followed depending on the profile. Like you could have a senior rep who's submitting orders and they don't need their orders to go through a manager for approval, but you have a junior rep that still needs their orders to go through approval. So once that junior rep becomes senior, you just move them over to the senior rep profile, and then they start following all the workflow and the configuration that's been configured for a senior rep. So in that way, profiles are really amazing in Pepperi, and they can allow you to do very powerful things. So let's start by taking a look at the rep layout of the home screen. Very simple. I edit the rep form, and I can see here all of my available fields. I have all kinds of access to different activities, to different lists, to different dashboards, and I choose which ones I want to add to the layout of my home screen. So just like you saw, I'm going to switch over now to the device. You saw I had the buttons here, my accounts, my activities, dashboard. I have a return activity. I have something called a salon visit, because this is actually a rep that's working for a cosmetics distributor. So they're visiting beauty salons, and I have a little list of my contacts of the contacts of my customers. So here are those buttons right here that I've added. If I wanted to make a change, if I wanted to take away some of those, like let's say if I take away the return and the salon visit, and then save here, synchronize my mobile device, then my home screen will change. So this is because I'm logged in as the rep user. If I was logged in as a merchandiser, I'd see different buttons and so forth. You see, here the buttons have been modified. Okay, and then the shortcut button is very simple. I just go to the home screen shortcut and configure which one value for the shortcut. You can only have one shortcut. So for the rep, it's called quick order. Okay, you can actually edit the label of the buttons. So although it's leading to the sales order, you can see it's the sales shortcut to a sales order. I can just rename the label to call it quick order or new order or whatever you want. Okay, so that's an example of configuring the branding in the home screen. let's go in now to my accounts. These are all the accounts that have been assigned to me as a rep. When you load your data, you have to load a file called accounts users, which assigns the accounts to your Pepperi users. So you may have, say 10, 15 sales reps. Each one is assigned to their own accounts. We also have a setting in Pepperi, and I'll show you that later on, that allows you to share information between reps. So if you have 2 reps assigned to the same customer, they can see each other's activity there. So when they go into that customer, they can see the history, they can see all the activity that's been done. That's up to you if you want to share or not. Okay, the accounts view, this is like a card view, which you can configure here, the information that should, the fields that should be displayed. These are all your basic fields that you're importing, your account data that you're mapping to the Pepperi fields. If you want to drill down and see the full account information, tap on the 3 dots and go to the full info view. And here you can see images, attachments, additional fields like account type, account size, and so forth, all kinds of information. If you wanted to give permission for editing this, say, update an address, update a phone number, fill in one of these custom properties like a payment method, upload a picture for the customer, anything, you can edit it here, and then that will be synced back to your ERP. We have a couple of different account views. So you have this card view, then you have the accounts near me view, which will group the accounts by their distance from you. So it's 1 to 10, 10 to 50, and 50 to 100, and then 100 plus kilometers or miles. Okay, so that's the grouping by the distance from the location that you're at. And then, of course, you have the map view, which shows you the accounts as pins on a map. You can color code the pins based on the type of account if you wish. Here, I don't have them color coded, but if they were, you'd have a legend here, and it would tell you, the red ones are mid to high level accounts, the green ones are regular accounts, and the yellow ones are prospects or leads. Whatever you want to tap on the pin, you see the full account information. Okay, you can also navigate to the account from the pin. So that's a kind of really high-level overview of this accounts view. You can configure this view here under accounts in the back office. Again, I'm going back to the browser, to the studio, and here I have the card layout, which I told you in the first view that you could configure which fields will appear on the card. Here I have the name, the type, the phone, city, street, and account ID. You can edit that and add any of the account fields that you've loaded and mapped to Pepperi to appear on that card view, which is a quick view of the account, anything you want the rep to be able to see without having to drill down, including custom fields. So, and then the map view, you can configure the color of the pins that you want, say the customers to be one color, the leads to be another color, and the prospects to be another color. So that's how you can configure the map view. Okay, I just configured that. So if we go back and sync, you'll be able to see that on my map view. So the configuration is really, for accounts, is pretty basic. You also have a filtering capability, which we call a smart search. So I can say, okay, show me all of my accounts that are from a certain type, that are leads, or there's only one of those, so that was a bad choice. Say that are customers and are, let's say, medium-sized. So that would be like a smart filtering that the user can do and say, okay, so I want to visit these guys today. This is my plan. Or we also actually have a route planning option, which allows you to schedule visits, and then you have this calendar view, which I'm actually not even going to go into because it's like I told you, there's no way we can get into all the configuration. I want to focus on the really hardcore basics that you must have. But there is the option for planning a route for the customers you want to visit, and then viewing your route and viewing that on a calendar view. Okay, so you can actually see it, and then it will show you the pins on the map numbered, stop 1, stop 2, stop 3. By the way, you can see now on my map view that the legend was updated, and my accounts are now color coded. The pins are color coded by the type of customer. Okay, so I'm going to exit this calendar view. Okay, I'm not seeing all the customers because I was on a filter, but now you can see that I have prospects and customers on the color-coded pins. Okay, so Any specific questions so far? I don't see any. Okay, so everything we've done so far really relies on your account data that you're loading and then configuring these different views. Let's now select an account and actually go in and do a transaction, do some activity. Okay, when I tap on an account, I get to what's called the account dashboard. This is an area which can show me actually whatever I want. I can fully configure the options, the different areas on the screen. The top toolbar are all the different activities I can do. Right now, I'm just either going to be doing a sales order. I've also added the option, this is something which typically a rep would not actually have. I should be taking this off, but it's the B2B order that the customer places by themselves when they're using the storefront. So let's just ignore that option. Typically, you'd have here a sales order, you've had some kind of visit report. You can configure this toolbar. Let's take a look where. Over here again in the studio back office, under account dashboard layout, I can configure that toolbar area. And I'm going to add a couple of more types of activities here. So I can configure the menu, I can configure the header. Okay, these are, I can't go into every single configuration, but the main ones, the activity toolbar. Okay, right now for the rep, I see, oh, the rep has the B2B order. That's irrelevant. I don't need that for the rep. I'm taking that off. And I'm going to add another type of activity. The rep might do a return. The rep might do a store survey activity that I created. The rep might take a picture at the customer, okay? So I'm adding those kinds of activities for the rep to do. Going back here and synchronizing, and I will have the options of doing all kinds of activities. Here I have the recent activities that I've done here. Sorry, I just need to refresh that. Okay, so now I have the activities that I added for the toolbar to appear here. Here in this area, I have recent activities. It goes 90 activities back. I can scroll back and see some history. You can also see this in a list form, which is more convenient, and then you can filter the date range and see way back. Sorry, I just flipped my iPad. Let me just lock the rotation. Okay. All right, so if you don't want to scroll back, obviously this isn't the most convenient interface for scrolling back to seeing history. You can just go up here to the menu and go to the account activities, and then you have a full list by type with columns with all the information about each activity, the date, the name, statuses, total sum, and then you can drill down and see, okay, this was the last order that was done for this customer. Or drill down into the history. For the default is 6 months back, but if you want to change the date and time range, you can change it here. And then you have all kinds of additional reports, like this one was just the sales orders. I can say, show me all the store surveys that were done for this customer, if there were any. There weren't any. Show me photos, show me phone calls, show me visit reports that were filed for this customer. Okay, so I don't have too many activities for this customer other than sales orders. Okay, so now let's go back. These two areas, this top upper dashboard and lower dashboard area, show me some charts and graphs. I can configure them. I can add my own BI data to show me additional information here. That's a bit more advanced, but out of the box, what you get are these two charts of the units in revenue this year versus last year by month, and the top items sold at this customer, which is the top items they ordered for the past 90 days. Okay, you can configure these two areas as well under here in the upper and lower dashboard of the account dashboard layout configuration. You can define which charts should be where, and you can add your own charts as well if you're importing BI data using XML and XSLT. Okay, so that's the account dashboard. Let's dive right into a sales order. This is the core transaction that the sales rep is going to be doing. Let's do one of those, and then later we'll do another activity, which is like a form, like a visit report or a survey, so you can see how a form or an activity differs from a transaction, such as a sales order. Okay, so here I am in the catalog. My main navigation in the catalog is through brands or main categories and then filters. So for example, I'm going to go to facial cosmetics, and then I have two filters, face and lip. Okay, these are the sub groupings underneath facial cosmetics. I have perfumes, I have men, and I have women. Okay, so I navigate through the catalog. I tap to add quantities of items. Now, in this catalog, in this as it's called, the order center in Pepperi, I have multiple views. I can configure which views should be available. We have many more views than this. I've configured medium, large, grid line, and lines view for smaller screens or phones, smartphones. So this is the grid line view that I've switched into now. So it shows me in a table format. I can configure each one of these views, which fields are presented here, if the fields are editable or not editable. For example, I've made the unit price editable here in my grid line view. So I can actually, if I'm in some kind of deliberation with the customer about the price, and I've decided to give them a discount, I can change the price right here without having to jump into the shopping cart and back to the catalog. You don't have to make this editable. You can make it read-only. You can also make it read-only in the shopping cart, but it's there for convenience if you want to edit the fields right here in the order center. Here I'm adding quantities, switching brands. Okay. Now I have a very special filter here that I've created called a wish list. So I've added the wish list indicator in the column here, which is a heart. So whenever I add items, tap on them to my wish list, I can go up here and tap on wish list and see all the items that I've marked to be in my wish list. This is a customer specific wish list. Okay, so it's showing me all the items that I've indicated for later purchase or later viewing. Some other features here in the order center, also the filtering capability. So you can say, okay, let's filter by some properties of the items. Show me all of the combination skin type products that are part of, say a certain group with certain ingredients and so forth, and then you will get to a subgroup of products. So the user can actually filter down by themselves using this row of smart search or kind of an advanced search. They don't have to rely only on the filters that you have created here here in the catalog. They can do their own searching. They can sort the items. For example, you can see here I've included the last order date of each item for this customer. So this customer last ordered this face primer on February 28th. Okay, what I can do is say I want to sort. Okay, well, it's not available by last order date. I can change it and allow to sort by last order date, but say I want to sort by inventory, by descending inventory. I can do ascending or descending. See, so the user can say, okay, sort the items by inventory, so I know that the ones with the most inventory are towards the top. And as I go down, the inventory is decreasing. I have not exposed the actual inventory in this catalog view, but I certainly could add another column here with the inventory of this product. If I want to go drill down and see a full page detail, hold on, say a full page detail of an item, a full information page, and there I can see the inventory, I can see multiple images and so forth. I can tap on the menu and select info, just like I did for accounts, and then I can see multiple images over here, and I can see full information, all the properties, the inventory, the last order date, price. I can see attachments, PDFs, videos, any attachment up to 5 megabytes if you want to add some additional information about the item. Okay, so this is the full item information detail page with the multiple images. Okay, so you can also see here that I've added the information I'm displaying in this kind of thumbnail view under the image of the item is the item name, the item code, the stock on hand actually is the stock on hand 286, and then the item code, and next to the item code I've concatenated an emoji icon just to show if the item is available or not available, or some indicator that this check mark indicates something and the sales rep knows what it means. So it's kind of a hint for the sales rep. Some items have an X, some items have a check, some items have a zero, a circle. So it depends. So you can add any emoji you want as an item property here and can concatenate it to any field or just show it in a little in the corner, anywhere you want. You can totally design this whole box and position the image on the left and the text fields on the right, however you wish, and I'll show you how to do that. So you can configure the views, the different views, the information, the way the information is displayed, the sorting capability, the smart search capability. You can also scan items, using the device camera. You can scan the UPC codes, so you can, and then search and find that item in the catalog. If you actually physically have the item, you can scan the code using this scanning capability here. See, this will show you using the device camera. You can also pair a Bluetooth barcode scanner to your mobile device and use that to scan and search for items and add them to the order. So that's really an overview of the order center. Once I've added items, I can then go to my shopping cart. And in the shopping cart, I have multiple different views. I can configure how the shopping cart looks. Right now, I've configured it as I'm looking at it in this kind of line view. If we switch over to the grid view, you can add any field that you want here. In the grid view, you can see I made some of these editable. You have a footer area that you can also configure with a remark. If you're adding tax or a subtotal or anything, you can add those fields here in the footer. You have a bunch of business rules. You have actually capability to implement any of your business rules in the shop. Excuse me. In the shopping cart. So once I try to submit an order, and what I'm going to do is actually, I want to remove some items, because I want the total to go below a certain amount, because I think I have a certain business rule here. Okay, so now I'm down to a pretty low total here. If I try to submit the order, okay, so actually it's telling me that I've earned 150 loyalty points for my order. These are notifications. You can configure notifications that are based on the item quantity ordered, which brands were ordered, the amount of money that was ordered. You can create kind of conditional pop-ups that come up and notify the customer of anything you want. You can also block an order from being submitted based on, say, order total is too low, or your credit line is past due and you can't submit an order, please contact us, or any business rule that you have can be calculated in the shopping cart. And as soon as it's part of the workflow. And as soon as you are submitting an order and proceeding in the workflow from the draft status of the order to the submitted status, it will run all the checks and pop up the required notifications or the stop conditions. Okay, there was a question about that, so I'm going to address that when I go into the workflow. Okay, so here I submitted this order. Over here, it was synchronized. I'm online. Of course, if I was offline, it would sync the next time I was online. And I submitted a sales order. Let's take a look now at all of those things that I spoke about and where they are configured in the Studio back office. Okay. Okay. Let's go into the Studio back office again, into the settings area. And now I'm going to show you a real heavy part of the configuration where you will spend a lot of time configuring under this area, sales activities, transaction types. you'll probably spend most of your time in Pepperi configuration under this area of transaction types. Now, a transaction type is actually a catalog related activity where you're adding quantities of items and arriving at a shopping cart and submitting it. Now, that's not just a sales order. It could be a quote, it could be a return, it could be a stock count. You could have all different kinds of transaction types. Now, you see here in my demo, I have about a dozen or more. Typically, a customer of ours will have one or maybe two or three types of transactions. Okay, if one is of course the sales order, another type could be a separate sales order that's meant just for the B2B self-service, for the storefront. So you'll have a sales order for the mobile users, for the reps, then you'll have a storefront B2B order, because those two can have different workflows, different approvals, different business rules. You don't want the same thing running for a buyer that you do for a sales rep. A buyer may have a minimum order amount that a sales rep doesn't really have to abide by. So you're not going to block an order for a sales rep. So you kind of can differentiate the workflows, the notifications, the layout, the configurations, what you make available to a buyer versus what information is available to a sales rep. So you want to have two transactions if you're using the storefront. So that's kind of a minimum of two. And then you might have another one or two where you have maybe a return or a stock taking, which is again a transaction. It's catalog related. It brings up the catalog, but you're actually doing a different process. You're not ordering those items. You may be returning those items. So they'll be processed as a credit. You may be giving a quote that is saved as a type quote, and it's integrated differently to the ERP because it's not going to be processed as a full-on sales order and then boxed and shipped and invoiced. Okay? Okay, so let's get, so what I'm going to do now is go into the sales order transaction that I just did and show you a lot of configuration that you can do in there. Okay, so I'm going to edit that sales order transaction, what I just did on my mobile device. And I'm going to get to the most important tabs here are really the views and forms, the workflows, and the settings. Okay, by the way, everything I'm saying now, of course, you'll have it recorded in the session. However, you should really refer to the information about transaction types in our knowledge base, in our help center. So you can click there straight there from the support button in the back office, and then you get to our support.pepperi.com. And then you can go into any one of the areas of the help, but you know, I'll just show you an example like the transaction types. Okay, so you have the views and forms configurations, you have just a general overview of sales transaction types. Let's go in there. This is actually a really good article. So you have one second, I'm sorry. This is not the overview article. I'm sorry about that. So you have sales transaction types, the views and forms configuration. So that's where you're going to spend a lot of time in the beginning, and then the article links to the further additional tabs you'll encounter. It shows you everything you need to know in the configuration of the transaction type. Okay, so let's go back there to views and forms. Over here, a lot of the things I spoke about you can configure. Let's start by looking at order center views, okay? When I open up order center views, that's referring to the information you saw. Go back to the iPad for a second. Okay, the information you saw when I was in a sales order in each one of these order center views, medium, large, grid line, and lines view. For example, in the medium view, you had the image, you had the description, the stock on hand, the code, the special hint, the indicator, the price, and then the unit quantity. Up here, you had the info, full info page menu option. Okay, so let's take a look at the medium view. Under order center views, you have the medium thumbnails view. Okay, so when I go into that view and I edit it, Okay, I'm editing it for the rep. It's the only profile that's using that view right now. You can see it's kind of like a puzzle. Okay, so I'm taking fields from my field bank, adding them into the view. So for example, let's say I wanted to add another view here, another field here called delivery date. Okay, delivery date, I think someone asked about this. This is a built-in field that we provide that you can map a delivery date from in your data from your ERP, delivery date per item. If I click on plus there, you see it adds the delivery date to the bottom of the display. First of all, I can then go and edit that field. I can change the label. I can make it say center alignment. I can make it read only, which I probably should because it's a delivery date that's coming from my ERP. It's not something you want them to change. And when I save that, you see it's added that field here. I can put it, say, higher up. I can, so basically it's like a puzzle. You position the fields wherever you want them to be. You have all the basic Pepperi fields. There was, if you remember, there were the fields last order date, last order price, last order quantity. That's also in the item information that we store for each customer, the last time they ordered each item, the date, the price, and the quantity. So if you wanted that to be displayed in the medium view, you could add that. I added that to my grid view, the last order date. Okay, so they know the last time I ordered this, oh, I ordered this 2 months ago, maybe I should order some more. Or the last order quantity, last time I ordered 10, that wasn't enough, maybe I should order 20. So these are fields that we provide, that we keep track of, that you can use in any one of your views. Then of course you have custom fields. So custom fields are all kinds of additional fields that you've loaded that are not the built-in Pepperi fields. They could be some calculated fields there because we allow you to run calculations. You can put emoji icons. You can check run a kind of little calculation to check an item's price or inventory or something and then return some kind of value that you want to display in that field. So those are custom fields that you can also, of course, add to any of the order center views. And basically that's the layout of each one of the views. So once I save that, and now let's go back to synchronize there on the order center, you'll see that I now have my delivery date appearing here on my medium view. I went back to the account dashboard so I could synchronize. Okay, I'm going to go now again to the sales order. And you see here the delivery date is indicated. Now, I don't have a delivery date that's being uploaded for each item, and the default delivery date is always today's date. So you'll see that value here. But if you're loading a value there, you can see it. And I think someone asked a question about delivery date. Let's see. It was... Okay, so the question was, is there a way to get Pepperi to automatically calculate the delivery dates based on a predefined schedule and include this delivery date in the shopping cart, in the grid view, and in the PDF cart summary, the PDF, the copy of the order that's being emailed? Definitely, yes. What I just used now is the standard field of a delivery date that we provide that you need to map into Pepperi with your item data. If you don't have that delivery date value available to map and load into Pepperi, and you want it to be calculated in Pepperi based on some kind of schedule, you would need to provide the data for that calculation in a user-defined table, first of all. And then then it would be a calculated custom field. If you didn't want to use this built-in field that we have where you just upload a date, then it would be a custom calculated field where we would have to do some lookup on a user-defined table that you would be updating so that we can calculate when is the delivery date of this type of product. And then you would just add that field to the grid view or to the medium view or to the shopping cart view or the PDF view. Okay, so it's a matter of either loading the data. Okay, so you're saying you did, okay, so either load into this field called delivery date, it's an items field, or create a custom calculated field that does some kind of lookup and checks for the delivery date and returns that value. Then you can just add it to the view. So if you wanted to add it, for example, to the grid view, so let's get out of the medium view, and let's go to another order center view, the grid line view. Okay, so I would go and edit the grid line view, and my grid line view has all of these columns in it. It has an image, an item code, the item description, and so forth. It has that wish list indicator, which is the icon, the plus or the heart sign. So you would just add the delivery date there. So I would search for that field, or if you created it as a custom field, then you would add it, it would come up as well, and you would add it to the view. Okay, the question is, how do you expect Pepperi to calculate that? Will you be providing some kind of data in a UDT for Pepperi to look it up and define the delivery date? Is it by brand? Is it by what is the delivery date determined? Okay, adding it to any one of the views is not a problem. Calculating it also is not a problem, as long as you give the criteria. Okay, so those are the different order center views that you can configure. Let's go take a look at some other things you can configure. Under the I can't go through every single one of the forms here, but I can give you a really good overview. And then, like I said, you have in the articles, you have a step-by-step that explains each and every one of these configurations. The cart configuration, okay? The shopping cart itself is, let's take a look in the shopping cart. Okay, I'm just placing an order. You have a whole bunch of views. I have a grid line view. I can have a line view for phones or smaller devices, right? That's friendly to smaller devices. It's not a whole bunch of columns across a wide view. Matrix grid view is also listed there. That's if you're selling matrix items. Is anybody selling items that have a main style code and then they are sold in variants of color and size? For example, like fashion, you have like small, medium, and large, and it comes in 5 different colors. So 5 colors, 3 sizes, that's 15 variants for a style. So if you have that kind of if you sell products like that, then you do need to load them in a format that associates them with their main style code, and then you can actually view them in the shopping cart in a kind of more organized way where they're grouped by style. Okay, that's very specific to matrix grid view to what we call matrix items that are sold with styles and variants. Okay, so you can configure the cart view here, the columns you want to show here. For example, the price here, I've made it not editable. In my order center catalog, it was editable. Once I get to the shopping cart, it's not. I can change that. Okay, so that's just one example. You have the footer area. So you have the views. Let's go back here to the cart. You have the cart grid view, the cart lines view. Line details is when you actually drill down on a line in a lines view. What do you see in the details? Because when you're looking on a smaller screen and you're in a lines view, you don't have an opportunity to show that much information, so you can actually drill down and see on the full screen of the phone the full item information. So that's this transaction line details. The matrix grid I just described. The cart PDF view. Okay, someone asked about this. The cart PDF view, this is where I can configure, once I have submitted an order and I've configured in my workflow, which we haven't gotten to yet, but it's an action that gets kicked off. It's an email notification action. Once my order gets submitted, you add the action of send an email notification with an attachment, a PDF attachment of the order to the store, to the sales rep, to the manager, to whatever you want to indicate. You can also indicate dynamic email addresses that when they change, Pepperi picks up on the change and sends it only to, if the store manager changed an email address, you can indicate that and Pepperi will dynamically get the right address. Anyway, so the point is that the PDF is being configured for this email notification. So the PDF form, let's take a quick look at what it looks like. I can, in the menu of the cart, I can preview that PDF right here, and I can see what it looks like. On the top, it has the logo, like I showed you, I said in the beginning. Then you have the header of the PDF, which has the general information. If you want to put account information, any custom fields, anything you want, you can put here with kind of these text splitters to kind of make it look nice and organized in different sections. And then you have the actual cart grid itself, which shows the items that were ordered. So I've configured there to be an image, and then the category name, and then the item description, price, quantity, and so forth. You can change this to whichever fields you want. You can add the delivery date field here as well. So all of that is configured in this area under cart. So you have the PDF view, the cart PDF, and the cart I'm sorry, and then you also have under transaction details, the details PDF. So you have details PDF and cart PDF. The details is this top area here. It's the general details about the order. And then the cart itself is this bottom area, which is the line items in the order. So let's go into the cart PDF view, the order table itself. If we edit that, you can basically, you're just dragging fields in and out of a table-like setup. So I have here the image, the codes, description, price, quantity, and so forth. This is exactly what you just saw in my PDF. I can add any fields I want. Like again, if I wanted to add the delivery date in there, so I would add that field to the cart PDF view. Let's say I take out the item remark because I don't have item remarks. I'm going to save that, and then when I go back, I'll see that my cart PDF view was modified. If you don't want an image or you want a really small image, I'll just give you a small tip on the PDF form. You can configure the widths of the columns, okay? So the default for all the columns is 10, but you can increase it relative to 10. So if I wanted, say, one of the other fields to be twice as wide, then I could say, you know what, let me take out some of these fields. They're not necessary. The main category code I can remove. Let's say I wanted the item description field to be twice as wide. So I would make that a 20. And then all the others would be kind of squished. So you can make the other fields smaller and increase the width of this field. You can also define what you want to sort the cart by. Any one of the fields that you chose in the layout, you can sort by the main category name, by the description, by the price, by the quantity. Like let's say you wanted to have the item quantities sorted by the items that the most items at the top, the items that were ordered the most of at the top, and then as descending as it goes down. So I would just choose item quantity from here. I just don't remember the exact name of that field. So it would be unit quantity. Okay, so I want to sort by unit quantity descending. Okay, and it'll sort the unit quantities descending. This is just for matrix options if you're using a matrix. And you can actually do a grouping. So you can say, okay, I want to group the items by their main category. I'll show you what that looks like just as an example. So I'll group them by brand or by main category. So if I save that and I go back to my order, let's see what the PDF will look like now after I synchronize. Okay, so let's go synchronize here. Okay, go back here, go out of this order. By the way, when you go out of an order, it's saved as in creation as a draft. You see here, this order has the red triangle. It means it hasn't been submitted yet. So I'm just synchronizing now. I'll get those PDF configuration changes, and then I'll go back into the order. Okay, right now I've ordered all my items from the same main category, beauty makeup. So I want to continue ordering. I want to add some other main categories just so that you'll see, because I grouped by main category. So I want you to see at least 3 different groups there. So I'm going to order from a couple of other main categories like perfumes and cosmetics. Okay, so now here's my shopping cart. You can see I ordered from a bunch of different main categories. Okay, now I'm going to go back to look at my PDF. And it should be updated to the new style. Yes. Okay, so now you see I have the item description column is wider. I have the items grouped by main category. So I see all the beauty makeup items. Next page, I see all the facial cosmetics. Then I have all the great, so you see, and I have the delivery date listed here in the PDF. Okay, so and here I have subtotals per main category because the grouping tells me I have 7 facial cosmetic items at $150. I have 12 beauty makeup items at $269. Okay, and then when I get to I see the final totals. I can also configure the totals of the PDF. Let's take a look here in the back office. Okay, so in the PDF view, okay, I have in the PDF view, I have the totals box. Actually, no, you actually have to add the total fields that you want individually. So I have added, yeah, okay, so in it's actually, there are 3 areas that configure the PDF. You have the transaction details, where you would configure the top section, the details of the PDF. You have the cart area, where you configure the view of the items themselves. And then you have the footer area where you would configure that PDF footer. Okay, I'm going into a bit of detail on the PDF because someone asked about it. So the PDF footer is what appears at the end of the last page of the PDF. So you have the totals box, which shows just the grand total. I've had the signature added here, but if you wanted to add any other fields, like say if you had some delivery date for let me see, is that an order delivery date or is that an item delivery date? So if under the transaction fields, if I had some, yeah, here's the general delivery date for the entire order. It's not for each item, okay? I could add that at the bottom. Any one of the fields, any of the custom fields I created, I could add to the footer, but you do have to go into the footer area to configure the footer of the PDF, okay? You can add a hard-coded like text if you want to put like some terms and conditions at the end there. You can actually add them as a text field and add that text field, you know, a hard-coded custom text field. Some people do that, okay? Does that answer your question about the PDF? Okay, so in the PDF, yeah, so the question was how to drastically amend the PDF cart view, and you also wanted to include stuff before the totals box. So you would have to add it here in the footer. Like if you wanted to add an image before the totals box, you would create a custom image field and then add that custom image field here in the layout of the footer. And that would all be at the end of the PDF on the bottom of the last page. So you have the details, which are the top of the first page. You have the order table itself, and then you have the footer. Okay. Now, if you wanted to really drastically edit the PDF and write your own XML formatting for the entire PDF, you could load your own PDF configuration file here. Under configuration files, you could add a configuration, let's say, let's see which one it would be, not general activity, it would be An order PDF. Yeah, PDF. I have quite a few different types here. Maybe it's order PDF here. So you would have to find your PDF configuration file here that's you're using, or you could create a new one and indicate to use that one. And then you would write your own XML and upload it. But that takes quite some expertise. We actually even have customers that purchase some service hours from us, especially just for programming that XML, because you want to call all kinds of Pepperi fields and display them and loop through the transaction lines and show lots of values and lots of fields. I mean, it could become complicated. If you could try to manage with the details, the table, and the footer section, which I think you can according to your question. Okay, good. Okay, so let's continue. Again, go back to the transaction types. Okay, go back to my sales order. I'm going to move on to show you a few more configurations here, and then we'll move to the really important workflows tab. Okay, all kinds of settings you can configure here. For example, for each one of the menus, like on every single one of the screens that you have, you can configure like what options should be presented and what shouldn't, which order center views, if you want people to use specific order center views, you can configure actually the order center views menu, for example. I could say, you know, I only want them to use the medium, the lines, and the grid line view, right? And the large view. But if you wanted, you could add a small view or something called a variant view, which allows you to see like the film strip of all the different colors available for an item on the bottom. So these, if you want them to scan items using a barcode, so you'd add the barcode view. So these are the views that I've decided to make available, and you saw them here in my order center. That's the order center view menu. So basically every one of these components that you see in the order center has a matching configuration area in the studio. So whether it's this order center view menu, the sorting, I want to enable sorting of my items by certain fields, ascending or descending. So then you would go and configure the sorting over here under the sorting, I believe, is configured under the search. So you have the item sort options, okay? So I'm enabling the user to sort the items in the catalog by inventory, by description, by item code, by these exact options that I gave. If I didn't want them to sort by weight, or I didn't want them to sort, so then I could remove that. Or if I wanted, for example, to sort by last order date. Okay, so I think it's all becoming quite clear. Remember, I wanted to sort by last order date, but I hadn't added it here. So now when I add it, it will become available, and then I could sort the items. So the ones that they've last ordered most recently will be at the top, and ones that they haven't ordered in a while will be at the bottom, or the opposite, ascending. Okay, so really every single one of the options in the order center has its corresponding configuration here. I really want to make sure we absolutely must get to the workflows tab. So unless someone has some specific questions on how to configure one of those options I showed in the order center, please ask and I'll show it. There's no way we can go through all of these. I'll stress again, in this sales transaction types articles, every single one of the options is explained, okay? With screenshots, with detailed instructions. Okay, workflows. Workflows are what happens, the actions that take place when a transaction is switching from one status to another. So there's a status transition, and in between that status transition, you want to kick off certain business rules. You want to check certain things, which will in turn kick off, say, certain pop-up notifications, or certain calculations, like shipping calculation based on the quantity of the items, maybe a minimum order, block the order if it hasn't reached the minimum order amount. All of those business rules are added here in the workflow section. In the workflows, you also add actions to push an order to integration to your ERP. Once an order is submitted, or you can add additional steps in the workflow. This is a very basic workflow of when an order is started, it goes from new to in creation. And then once you're in the shopping cart and you hit on submit, it reaches a submitted status. You may want to add another step to this where you want to go from, say, in creation, not necessarily directly to submitted. You want to go to waiting for approval, for example, and say, okay. And then you want to go, it's going to look a little messy until I set this up. And then you want to go from waiting to approval to submitted. So you have two ways to get to submitted. Either you go through an approval. Okay, try to set it up in a nicer way. Okay, so to go from in creation, just visually, I wanted it to be. From in creation, you can either go to waiting for approval, or you can go directly to submitted. That will depend on if you want, like what I said before, like if you have a senior rep and a junior rep and you want the junior rep, you need all of his orders to go through here first before they go to submitted. But the senior rep can go straight from in creation to submitted. Okay, so those are also the kinds of things you need to think about when you're setting up your workflow. Now, setting them up for the senior rep and the junior rep, that's done based on their profile in this area, in the table area. The table area of the workflow is where you're defining by profile, okay, by managing the profiles and saying, okay, I have a rep, and then I have another profile called, say, a sales manager. Okay, a sales manager does not need to go through the waiting for approval. Okay, one second. Okay, a regular sales rep does. So that kind of a much more advanced configuration of the table and the managing the profiles, but I just wanted to point out that that's another aspect of setting up these transitions in the workflow. Now, there are 12 or 15 different statuses. You can create a workflow that goes through even more statuses. Maybe in your workflow, you send the sales rep to a payment status where they need to process a payment through PayPal or another payment provider, and only then the order can be submitted. So, and if the payment fails, it falls into some status of waiting to be approved or waiting for payment. So there's all kinds of statuses that your order can fall into. You can also have logical branching going on here and say, okay, well, the order is in creation. If it's above $1,000, it needs to be approved. If it's below $1,000, it does not need to be approved. And that's a branch condition that you add to the workflow. So there's all kinds of checks and things you can enforce on the transaction using the workflow. Let's look at a basic workflow. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this whole waiting for approval thing here. And we're going to stick to the basic workflow of new, in creation, and submitted. Okay, so new to in creation, this is a transition that occurs when I first open up the order. Okay, I'm on my device, or I'm a buyer on the storefront, and I'm just opening up the order. I have not yet even added any quantities. Okay, I've just tapped on sales order. So if I look on my device, I'm tapping on sales order to start a brand new order, and I haven't added any quantities. Up until this point, the order is in a status called new. Once I go into in creation is as soon as I tap on any plus sign like I just did here and I added a quantity, the order is now in creation status. Why would we give you a transaction status transition between new and in creation? What kind of checks could you possibly do at that point in the order? Well, I'll give you a couple of examples. One is you want to check if this customer is even allowed to start placing an order. You want to check their credit limit, and if they're beyond their credit limit and they owe you money, you don't want them to start placing an order. You want to remind the sales rep, so you can put in a stop condition. So I'm going to edit this transition here, and I'm going to say between new and in creation, I want you to do a check. I'm going to add an action called a stop condition. Okay, it's not a regular condition. It's not just a notification like, hi, how are you? It's a stop condition. It will block them from continuing. It has just one button that says cancel, and then they're out of the order. They're kicked out. Okay, it's kind of an extreme thing to do, but sometimes you need to do it. So I'm going to add this stop condition. My stop condition is going to be based on some Boolean true or false value. Is the customer beyond their credit limit or not? So I'm going to add a Boolean, a custom field that checks the value of the credit limit of the account. Now, in order for me to check that credit limit, I must upload that limit with my customer data to Pepperi. So I need to upload a field, a custom field called a credit limit when I'm loading my accounts data. Pepperi will check the credit limit according to your Boolean rule. The rule could say, you know, if the credit limit is above 500, if I'm sorry, if I don't actually, I don't mean the actual credit limit, but I mean the amount of credit that they are, the amount of credit they already have uh, that they've used up, right? So if the credit that they've used up is above 1,000 or above 2,000 or whatever amount, or if it's even just greater than zero and they've used up credit, then they can't place an order. So you're going to write them a message. You're going to say, hi, you know, you're going to use some Pepperi fields. Hi, account name. Please note that you are on you are using your credit limit and you cannot place an order at this time. Please contact our finance department. Okay, something like that. And you want this to be stopped depending when the value is true or false. That depends on the logic here in the check. So if the credit limit is greater than zero, then the value is going to be true, and this message will pop up and block them from placing an order. So I'm going to save that stop condition. Okay, and now you see that you're starting to see the power of the workflow. Stop condition is just one of dozens of actions you can kick off. Okay, so I'm going to go back now to try and place an order. And by the way, you can put this rule in place for certain accounts only. It doesn't have to be global. The rules can go depending on the account type. If you have certain, you know, high-level customers that you allow them to place orders even when they've used their credit limit. Okay, so now I'm going to go. You know what? I'm not sure the credit. Okay, the credit limit for this customer is $1,500. So I'm not sure what the rule says. So I'm not really sure it will pop up. No, it hasn't popped up. What I could do is just change it just for the demo purposes. I'll just change it to false here. So I'm going to edit that stop condition and go to false. I think it should pop up now. Anyway, what's going to happen is as soon as I tap on sales order, it's going to pop up and say, you cannot place an order. You're over your credit limit. Okay, hi, Las Vegas Salon, please note you're using your credit limit. Okay, so that's a kind of stop condition you can do, and I have to tap OK and I'm kicked out. Let's move on to the next status. Once I am allowed to place an order, okay, I add quantities, I filter through, I'm doing my checks, which items I want to order, and then I get to my shopping cart. Once I'm in my shopping cart, I may want to run some checks. Like, for example, I have some alert action that is being kicked off here based on a certain condition that I'm checking. So if the customer, my condition in this example is if the customer ordered more than $800 but less than $1,000 worth of products, I want to pop up a notification and tell them, hey, you're really close to $1,000 and you know that there's a special discount for $1,000, so you might want to add a few more items. Okay, so that's an alert that will pop up, but it won't pop up at all times. It will only pop up on condition. That's another type of notification you can have. Another kind of notification I have here is just the loyalty points. Okay, if you want to tell them how many loyalty points they earned, or you want to tell them thank you for placing your order or anything like that, you can just pop up just a standard notification. It's not based on anything. It's just a hi, how are you, thank you notification. I can add all kinds of actions. In addition to all of those alerts, I can add a branch. If the order is above 1,000, send it for approval. If it's not, you know, the workflows are so powerful. I can capture the date and time and geolocation of the order and then use those in my report, so I can see actually where the order was submitted physically on the geolocation of the device. I can run a push notification. If the order is being submitted, I can get, like a native push notification to all the devices that are logged into Pepperi at the time with a certain username. So I can say push a notification, just like you get a WhatsApp or an SMS push notification on the home screen of your phone. Even when the Pepperi app is closed, you can be getting these notifications, these native push notifications to the mobile device. And then after I do all of these checks and kind of business rules and alerts in my actions, I have a section here called post actions for every status transition as well. So once I pass through all of these, what do I want to do after the order has gone from in creation to submitted and actually changed into a submitted status? The most obvious thing is to send an email notification. Send a copy of the order by email to the store, to the sales rep, to the manager, right? So here I'm going to add an email. An email is available only as a post action. You can't send emails in the regular list of actions. You can do all these other things, but email is for a post action. After it hits submitted, you'll send that email. You can send the email to any recipients you wish. I told you can also do like dynamic email addresses, like if you have loaded, say, a custom field for your accounts called Account Store Manager. So you can just put that custom field here and Pepperi will go and get that email address, or you can just put your email address, CCBCC. If you want to send it to the customer or not, you can edit the subject and the body of the message, either hard-coded or use a configuration file to put in all kinds of Pepperi fields in there. And then, of course, you want to attach that PDF file that you worked so hard to configure to the email. Okay, so that's where I choose the format of the file. See, I can have all kinds of PDFs, like I showed in the configuration files a bit earlier. I can have a certain format for sales orders. I can have a certain format for quotes. I can have a certain format for returns. So the PDF I configured just now, the regular PDF for the order, was the one that I showed you that I configured the header, the details, the order table with the groups, and then the total, the footer area. I want to attach that to my email. Okay, so that's what you'll typically put in the post actions. You can also put any one of the other actions here. You can kick off external programs with custom forms. You can run webhooks that will integrate the order to your ERP. You can run payment, connect to your payment provider through a webhook. The workflows are extremely powerful and they allow you to carry out any one of these actions. Again, it really depends on what you need to do, and all of those actions and everything are defined in you can read the full description of each one of the actions, again, in the Help Center in the detailed how-to all about workflows. Okay, so you can really see here how to work with workflows, and you can see that the different actions that are described, and you can see the detail of each type of action. Webhooks, forms, push notifications, emails. You can update inventory in the workflow. So there's all kinds of actions you can do here. If anyone has a specific question about a workflow action that they need in their business logic, I'll be happy to show it. There was a specific question about a stop condition. Okay, a stop condition which prevents customers from ordering under, let's say, 1,500. Okay, so so you have a minimum order amount of 1,500, right? That was your question. Okay, so that stop condition, okay, so that was your question, correct. That stop condition would go here in between the in creation and submitted, because it's in the shopping cart. You want to check that they actually reached the 1,500. So you're going to add in that transition, you're going to add an action here, a stop condition action, right? And it's actually a basic one. And you actually need a custom Boolean field to do that. So let's say I have a custom field here that's checking, for example, if the total, I already have one created, but you know what, let's add it from scratch. Okay, I'm just going to add a custom checkbox or Boolean field. It's going to be a calculated field because I'm running a calculation, I'm running a comparison, I'm checking. Okay, so I'm going to call this minimum order 1500. And then I'm going to go to the formula section of that custom field. By the way, what I'm showing now is actually pretty advanced. It's a calculated custom field, not a standard custom field that you're just populating with data from your ERP. Okay, so this formula is written in JavaScript. It's very basic JavaScript. Even someone like me who's not a programmer, you can pick up on it. And we also have a kind of like a little debugging evaluation tool. So here is where you're going to need to put in the simple check of, is the order total greater than 1500? So you're going to go to the fields that you want to use in the formula, and you're going to go to the finance information fields, and you're going to use the grand total field. Okay, that's the field that you're going to add to work with in the formula. So I'm going to add that field here. And what I'm going to return is if the grand total is greater than 1500, and that's all. My grand total greater than 1500, and that's going to be either true or false. Okay, I can evaluate my little quick little easy check here that I created by running a test and saying, okay, let's put in a value for the grand total of 1000, and let's run that check. 1000 returns false. Let's put in 1501, which will return true. Okay, so this way I know that I'm not missing a comma, a little semicolon anywhere. I know that my formula is running. The formulas for calculated fields can be pages of code. It can be, much longer than this. This is a really basic Boolean check. It's returning true or false. Based on that, okay, so I'm going to save that formula. Now, but it's going to take me back to the workflow. So I'm going to do it based on the minimum order 1500. If the minimum order 1500, if the order is greater than 1500, if that's false, meaning it's less than 1500, I'm going to stop the order and say you have not reached the minimum order amount of 1500. Please add more items. And you can actually use any of the Pepperi fields if you want to personalize it, like account name or whatever you want. By the way, you can have a different minimum order amount per customer if you want. It doesn't have to be global. You'd load like a user-defined table, and you'd have a query checking what is the minimum order amount for this customer, and then you would populate that. You would use that calculated field and check if the minimum order, check the grand total against that specific minimum order for that customer. Do you have it, is it a global 1500 or do you have it per customer? Global. Okay, global is much easier. So I'm going to save that. And now I have this stop condition here, minimum order 1500. Now let's go and see how that looks on my device, and it should work. Okay, so I'm going to sync here. I might be completely blocked from placing an order because I remember I put this credit limit stop condition. I'm going to remove that because it's going to block me from placing an order. Okay. Okay, so I synchronized. I have that new workflow here. I'm going to do a sales order. Obviously, it's going to be less than 1500. And then I'm going to try to submit it. And it's going to tell me, well, first, I had this notification from before the loyalty points, and now it's telling me you've not reached the minimum order amount. Please add more items. So I can't go on until I add more items. So now I'm way above 1,500, and it tells me again about my loyalty points, and it submits the order. Okay, so that's the formula you need. Okay. Yeah, you have to use the word return at the beginning of the formula because it must return some value for the check. Okay. Any questions on the workflow or specific requirements that you may have and you want to know how to accomplish it in the Pepperi workflow? One more thing I'll show on the workflow, which somebody did ask about, is once I submit an order, here, for example, this order, if I go tap on it, and I can no longer edit it because it's been submitted and my workflow ends there. Okay, my workflow ended at submit. But what if you want to enable the reps to go back in and change orders after they've been submitted? So you would have to add another transition. So I would go here to the workflow of the sales order. And then I would have to add another step, which is actually a loopback step. It's going from submitted back to submitted. Okay, from submitted to submitted, and let's call it resubmit, for example. And then you can see that it loops back. And you also would want to include in the actions there the same like post actions. For example, make sure if you're sending an email when the order is submitted, you'll want that email to be resent with the amended order. You'll want it to be resent again. So make sure you add an email action there as well, because this time it's going from submitted back to submitted. It's not in creation to submitted. So the actions that took place in creation are finished. So now you'll want to add, for example, say another email action, or if you want to run the same checks about the minimum order amount, the stop condition, all of those, you'll have to make sure and add those actions and those post actions to the submit and resubmit loop as well. Okay, so once I have this resubmit option and I go back, let's see how that looks. I'm going to synchronize. You'll see now at the bottom of the order, I'll have a resubmit button. So I'll go back in here to this submitted order. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't resubmit that order because the workflow wasn't in place. I'll create a new order because the workflow was not in place at that time when I created the order. Okay. I might get some warnings here. Okay, 1,500. Let's do that. Submit. Okay, and now I should be able to see it under. I might not have it in my workflow here. Oh, it didn't get added to the profile settings. That's strange. That's a no, it didn't get added to the profile settings. That's not cool. It should have been added here. For some reason, I don't know, maybe this transaction workflow needs to be. I actually duplicated this transaction from another one, so maybe I missed something. See, the submitted back to submitted loop is not in the table. See, it only has new to in creation to submitted, and it should be another line here, submitted to submitted, but it's not creating that line. So from my experience in the past, in order to get that line to be created, I actually have to clear out the entire workflow and rebuild it again. But that's because I'm working with a duplicated account, and I mean, it's not something that happens to like an actual, this is a demo, so you wouldn't be duplicating transactions from other accounts. The idea is, though, I'm not going to take the time to delete and recreate the workflow, but the idea is that I would have a button here, resubmit, okay? And then I could make changes and then hit resubmit, and then all of my workflow actions would take place and the order would still be in a submitted status. Okay. Any questions about the workflow? Okay, there's an area that I didn't touch on at all, which is the other type of activity you can do, which is the forms. Rather than a catalog-centric activity, which is like a transaction, you can also have surveys, pictures, merchandising activities, which are form-based. So these are all activities that allow the user to go to a store and say, fill out a survey. The survey is simply a form, and you decide, what kind of fields you want, how many pages the form should be, what kind of values can be entered, and then that can be submitted and reported on. So, for example, here I have a store survey, which tells me, okay, this is the store information. You're doing the survey. Start the survey. It's a multi-page form. So I'm going to start it. No. Let's go. Okay, for some reason, all the pages are the same here. Let's go to another form. Let's say a picture report. I say I have a form here which has a field for adding an image. I can tag that image with any, say it's a display image or competitor image. I can write a text description. I can add a photo from the device camera. You can also choose an existing photo. You can block this option as well and force the user to take a fresh new photo using the device camera, and then submit this activity, and then the manager can view it and run reports on it to see, all the different photos, the merchandising activities. Typically, it's a merchandiser who's taking pictures and commenting on all kinds of. I just want the store survey to run because I wanted to show you an example of like a multi-page form. Now it's running all on the same page. Yeah, it's not showing. Okay, I'll show you how it looks in the back office. Under sales activities, rather than transaction types, it's under activity types. Okay, so I have all kinds of forms like the picture form. I have a contact us form, all kinds of forms that you can set up with fields, any kind of field types, text, numerical, date, multi-choice selection, single choice selection, checkbox, images, emails, any kind of field that you add to the form, design this form, and have your users executing these kind of merchandising or CRM type of activities out in the field. So for example, that store survey, let's edit that store survey and take a look at all of the forms for the store survey. So yeah, I see that there was only one form configured for that rather than the multi-pages, but you could always add additional pages to the form, or you could have just one really long page. It depends on how you want to break it up. And then basically the activity form fields, it's the layout of the form. So I can have kind of like splitters where I have like divide the form into sections like store information, sales rep information, survey information, and then I can add all kinds of fields. Like let's say I wanted to ask a question. Sorry, I did that really quickly. what I've done here is clicked on Add Custom Field, and then I can add, say, a multi-choice question, and I can say, what is your favorite line of products? And then I can put, option 1, option 2, option 3, etc. And then I can add that field to the form. Custom fields here. What is your favorite line of products? Okay, so now I've added that field here. I can position it, I can format it. I don't want to make it read-only. I can make it mandatory, so you cannot submit the form without filling it in. All kinds of options on the field. And then I've added now this question to my activity form, and I can get that feedback from all of my users when they're visiting the stores. Okay. Actually, activities also have workflows, and it's the same exact concept as the transaction workflow. The reason this store survey has so many statuses in the workflow is because each status is actually a different page of the form. And I told you this example, this store survey was multiple pages. So it's going to have a different status for each page, but you could have it just all on one page and then fill out that question and submit the form, all as one page. Trying to see if I have another type of form here. Okay, I have a store visit form which I could fill out. You can create all kinds of forms and have your mobile users, your eyes in the field, your merchandisers executing them. Any specific questions or needs that you have regarding activities as opposed to catalog-centric transactions? Or any other questions about some of the other topics that I spoke about? Okay, as you can see, we've spent, about 90 minutes here, and we've really just hit the tip of the iceberg. There's so much to cover. One thing that I haven't touched on at all, actually, is the data upload. And I'm wondering if all of you guys are integrated to your ERP so that you're using like an ERP plugin of ours to get your data into Pepperi. And if you are having any trouble with that, that's one thing I didn't talk about. Um, has everyone already done their integration and loaded their actual data into Pepperi? Okay. Um, okay, so like I said, this session occurs weekly, and you can come back and keep asking your questions. People usually tend to come to 2 or 3 sessions like this when they're first getting started with Pepperi. So please feel free to join. The dates are published on our online training page on our website at pepperi.com. And thank you for your time. Thank you for getting to know the product in depth. As you can see, there is a lot of depth. And I think I've given you quite a bit to chew on. And you, again, like I said, you'll all get a copy of the link to the recording. So goodbye, everyone, and thanks for joining.